Does it seem like our lives are moving along at an ever faster pace? Take just one example, the online world, where algorithms feed us an endless stream of engaging content. But are we really living life faster? And is this change changing us? Pay close attention to correspondent David Pogue.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Hang on one second. Oh, let me call you back. I gotta do a TV thing. Does it ever seem like something is going on with our attention spans? I mean, the world's #1 most downloaded app is TikTok, an infinite stream of very short video clips. Newspaper articles are getting shorter, and they tell you how much time you'll need to read them. And the average length of a shot in a movie is now under 5 seconds.
We're always holding another device. Like, if you're watching something, I feel like everyone always has their phone next to them or
That makes
after.
me so sad.
These days, multitasking while you're tasking is the norm among young people. Just ask counselor Lauren Barnett and her daughters Zoe and Sasha.
My roommates would all be like doing work on their computers, watching TV, but also on their phones, texting people.
I have a short attention span.
You hate long classes.
Yeah, I can't sit in long classes. I think I'm
Can't
just,
sit at long meals.
yeah.
Where are your phones right now?
Over there somewhere.
Is there any cell in your body that's like, as soon as this is over, I'm gonna go right over and...
Every cell.
So my book is called Attention Span, and it's basically...
I'm sorry, can you hang on one second?
Hello.
Just kidding. Gloria Mark is an attention researcher at the University of California, Irvine. Is there any scientific evidence that attention spans are getting shorter?
Yes. So we started studying attention span length over 20 years ago. We would shadow people with a stopwatch, and every time they shifted attention, we'd click stop. In 2003, we found that attention spans averaged about 2.5 minutes on any screen before people switched. In the last 5-6 years, they're averaging 47 seconds on a screen.
How can you get anything done if you're supposed to write a report and 47 seconds later you're switching to another app?
You do it with great difficulty.
Professor Mark maintains that a shorter attention span has 3 downsides.
The first is that people make more errors when they do attention shifting. Second downside is that it takes longer to do something because we have to reorient to every new task every time we shift. The third downside, maybe this is the worst of all, is that stress increases. When people are working on multiple tasks and they have to shift their attention, their blood pressure rises.
You don't have to be a professor to guess at the cause of our greater distractibility. It's technology, of course. Phones, social media, texting. Sasha Barnett can attest to that. Do you guys have iPhones?
Yeah.
Go into the screen time settings and tell us how many unlocks in a day.
You can do that?
Oh, pickups. Okay, yesterday I picked it up 236
Oh my
times.
God.
That's a lot.
So, is that it? Have we become the overstimulated zombies foretold in Back to the Future 2?
Okay, I want the channels 18, 24, 63, 109, 87, and the Weather Channel.
I don't think our attention spans have changed really at all. There's no data for that.
Cornell psychology professor emeritus James Cutting doesn't think it's time to abandon all hope.
I would point out that TSA baggage scanners work 2-hour shifts, and that's pretty intensive work for 2 hours. And many of us have watched teenagers play their games for many hours at a time. And it strikes me that that kind of attention span is pretty impressive.
But what about that business of movie shots getting shorter? I mean, we've come a long way from the pacing of 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968. to Top Gun Maverick last year.
Smoke in the air! Smoke in the air! Hang on!
Cutting says that's got nothing to do with our attention spans. We just know the language of movies better than our ancestors did.
We have gotten over the decades a lot faster at picking up visual material. It sort of makes sense that a filmmaker would make the shots shorter. The filmmaker doesn't need to dwell on something like that.
Cutting also points out that even though TikTok videos are very short, movies themselves are getting longer.
There are a lot more movies pushing 3 hours now than there used to be. But of course, we also have long-form television where things can go on for 8 episodes, 12 episodes, or whatever.
One thing's for sure. As Lauren Barnett points out, technology's not going away.
It's their whole world. There's no job where they could be without it. There's no academic environment where they could be without it. Like, there's no social interaction unless they go away to the mountains for 2 months.
I am not an advocate of throwing away technology. What we need to do instead is learn how to live with it.
Gloria Mark has a couple of tips for staying focused. First, when you feel the itch to change tasks, analyze why. If it's just boredom or procrastination, make a deal with yourself that you'll work another 20 minutes and then treat yourself to a reward. Second, picture yourself at the end of the day. What do you want to have accomplished? How do you want to feel?
A concrete visualization of yourself sitting on the couch, watching your favorite show is really good motivation.
I mean, my grandfather died just shy of his 107th birthday.
Wow.
And he told me that his parents would say, "You're going to rot your brain listening to that newfangled radio."
Right.
For me, it was, "You're going to rot your brain watching TV.
Yep.
For you, it's, "You're going to rot your brain on social media." I mean, every generation thinks that technology is ruining the next one. That's why I'm hung up on this notion of, is it worse or is it just different?
Depends on whether they're considering productivity or considering well-being. And I think they're two very different things. I think they'll be just as productive, but their well-being, with all that increased productivity, there's no question that their well-being is negatively impacted. So therein lies the dilemma.
It may be Sunday morning, but Monday will be here all too soon. For millions of us, that used to mean heading to the office until the pandemic hit, forcing those who could to work from home. As David Pogue shows us, it's an option many workers continue to embrace, even demand.
Until the pandemic, most office workers went into the office 5 days a week. During the pandemic, they mostly worked from home. So as the pandemic eased, you might have expected that they'd go back to the office 5 days a week. That's certainly what Jamie Dimon expected. He's the CEO of America's largest bank.
We want people back at work, and my view is sometime September, October, it'll look just like it did before.
As it turns out, the workers rush back to the office full time never happened.
What they really like, most people, is working from home 2 or 3 days a week, because that saves on the commute time. It gives them more time with kids and family. It gives them more personal autonomy and how they organize their day. Even things as small as, I can have the temperature at the temperature I like.
Stephen Davis is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford. He and his co-authors surveyed 30,000 Americans about work. And what they said is, hybrid hits the sweet spot.
Most people really, really like it. So that kind of broke the norm.
Of course, not all kinds of workers can work remotely. Even so, at this point, about a third of Americans are working on a hybrid schedule, and that number is expected to grow as more employers go hybrid.
We believe that the future of work is hybrid, for sure. That's going to be the modern work style.
Kelly Steckelberg is the chief financial officer of Zoom. Yes, that Zoom, the company whose video chat software helped make remote working a thing in the first place. The company now expects its own local workers to come into the office 2 days a week.
So we have product and engineering, for example, comes on Mondays and Wednesdays. Sales and marketing come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because we don't have enough space any longer to host everyone at the same time.
Oh, so you are, in effect, saving money on office space.
We are saving money. We have actually downsized our space during the pandemic. We closed some of our offices.
Bringing the company's workers back after the pandemic, even 2 days a week, was an adjustment at first.
We're all human, right? We don't like change. Once they've been doing it for a few weeks, they remember how great it is to see their friends and colleagues in the office, and they like it more.
Of course, less time in the office means less time for new hires to learn the company culture, and less time to mentor younger workers.
You have to be a little bit more deliberate about that. And that's what we had to do during the pandemic. I would just schedule a 15-minute catch up. Hey, how are you? How is your life going? Those I make sure that I continue to schedule those video check-ins on a regular basis.
So if hybrid work is so great, how come we weren't using it before? One big reason, technology. Video programs like Zoom, messaging programs like Slack, and collaboration tools like Google Docs.
If the pandemic had struck 20 years earlier, it would have been infeasible to have the same kind of shift to work from home.
Wow, I mean, there aren't many things to be grateful for with the pandemic, but that it waited until 2020,
Okay.
that's one of them.
That's one of them.
Before the pandemic, there was also a stigma about working from home. How could bosses know that their workers weren't just goofing off? The boss can't observe what the workers are doing. To what degree are managers installing monitoring software on their remote workers' machines?
Most workers dislike the intrusive quality that every keystroke and where I'm looking on my computer screen and how often I'm sitting down is being monitored.
They dislike that, do
They dislike that, yes. So what works better is evaluating people on their performance rather than trying to watch exactly what they do.
So this was something that we developed over the last 2 years.
At Zoom headquarters, workspace executive Alana Collins showed me some of Zoom's new products for hybrid work. There's an off-site receptionist who can cover multiple floors or even buildings. Are you the building-wide receptionist?
I am. How can I help you?
Oh, I'm expecting a huge crate of Skittles. Can you arrange to have that delivered to my desk?
I absolutely can.
Thank you. Love your work. And there's a system for reserving a desk on the days you come to work, or a conference room. Yeah, that's my kind of meeting. 2 people. All right.
You could select the time right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I believe in long meetings.
And this will immediately change to red, letting everybody know that I have that meeting room all day.
But hybrid doesn't always mean 2 days a week. There are many flavors of hybrid work.
We identify 22 weeks a year, and we say we would like folks to try to be in person those weeks.
It's 3 days a week, but only every other week, kind of?
Generally, we would like them to be in person, a minimum of about 25%.
At the Ohio headquarters of Smucker's, the company famous for jams and jellies, CEO Mark Smucker has developed a hybrid version of hybrid.
Our attrition is down, and our productivity has improved, and folks really seem to like it. We have been able to attract new talent from multiple geographies.
Geographies like San Francisco.
I have my dream job. It's based in Ohio, working with people that I really like working with, but I have my dream life and my family in California.
Smucker's marketing executive Nicole Massey works from her West Coast home most days, but spends 6 days a month in Ohio.
You have to really think about, what am I going to do this week when I'm in the office, or versus what am I going to do when I'm remote? Because in order to get the best of both, you have to be intentional about it.
So let's see. The hybrid employer gets improved morale, better productivity, lower real estate costs, and the ability to hire from beyond the local area. The hybrid employee gets more time with family and community, less time commuting, and the ability to control the thermostat. And the planet gets cleaner air, because less time commuting means less polluting. This is starting to sound like a win-win for all parties. I mean, who loses in the hybrid arrangement?
Oh, there's some losers. If you go to downtown San Francisco, you'll see the losers.
It's true. In the top 10 U.S. cities, office attendance is about half what it was before the pandemic. With so few people coming downtown, everything is collapsing. The price of real estate, tax revenues, and transit ridership. And think about all the restaurants, bars, and hotels. Many have shifted schedules or even closed. The last time America's work life shifted so dramatically was during the Great Depression, when Franklin Roosevelt signed the 40-hour work week into law. Now, after the upheaval of the pandemic, Stanford's Stephen Davis is confident that the 5-day in-person work week is history.
I think we're close to the new normal. There's more choice for people now, and that's why I think it's a good thing. People have more flexibility, more personal autonomy in how they want to organize their lives.
Sir Isaac Newton wrote, "Truth is ever to be found in simplicity." Well, if Sir Isaac were around today and tried to use a laptop or drive a car or even turn on the stove, let's just say simple, they are not. David Pogue searches for simplicity in a complicated world.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more complicated. Our phones have over 1,000 settings. Shower heads come with apps. Cars have touch screens. Ovens have touch screens.
There's no doubt that featureitis is real. And again, most of these things are too complicated.
Design consultant Jacob Nielsen says that part of the problem is bad design.
Simplicity is actually difficult to achieve. It takes a good amount of time and talent, I should say, as well.
And part of the problem is us. As consumers, we tend to buy the gizmos with the most features.
If I give you the choice between this toothbrush can do 2 things and this one can do 5 things, you may think the 5-feature toothbrush is a better toothbrush.
I think we've identified the nub of the entire problem because manufacturers know that we will always pick the one with more features. So that's their incentive to keep piling them on.
Yeah, they have the incentive to do more of that.
But if you think today's products are hard to learn, try designing them. Do you happen to know in total how many commands there are in Microsoft Word?
I can tell you, having redesigned all of the icons for all of commanding in all of Office, that the collection of all of Office is thousands and thousands, tens of thousands.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man! John Friedman is Microsoft's chief of design. And yet, what would happen if you, in a new version, were attempt to take away something that didn't get much use?
Some set of people would feel like we removed something very important for them. This is the conundrum we have to deal with. How do we take the power of what can be added to products as technology gets better and make it really simple for people?
Over the years, Microsoft has tried many times to strike that balance. When people complained that Microsoft Word was too complex, Microsoft offered a simpler, streamlined word processor called Write. It bombed.
It was one size fits all, and that's really hard. Simplicity can only come when it's truly adapted to each individual's definition of what is simple for them.
Then there was Clippy, the cartoon paperclip.
Clippy would proactively come forward in something like Word and say, it looks like you're trying to write a resume, and help you with the tools that you would need to do something like write a resume.
Clippy flopped too.
I think it was before its time.
Achieving simplicity is even harder when you're designing cars, because your customers are supposed to keep their eyes on the road.
Everything is getting more complex, and now you can imagine what it means in a vehicle environment where you have to drive. In addition, you get all kinds of information.
Frank Weber is the head of vehicle development for BMW in Munich, another company that has experimented with designs for simplicity.
The BMW iDrive system.
In the early 2000s, it introduced a turning, tilting, clicking knob for navigating menus called iDrive. It was not a hit.
Perhaps you own a BMW and it's making you feel a bit like...
And we were heavily criticized. So it was not that everybody loved it from the beginning, because their experience was different that they had with their other vehicles. You have to be very careful not to overwhelm people when you go from one generation to another generation.
But now, are you ready for some good news? These companies say that thanks to new breakthrough technologies, they're on the verge of curing featureitis once and for all.
Drive me to Berlin.
In BMW's 2025 cars, it will be voice control. What are some of the things that you will be able to do by voice that used to require going through menus?
Many of the things, whether you ask for service, whether you want to change the interior color of your vehicle. I think if you want to go to a sport mode, typical things where you have to go deep into your menu structure. People will never do this again.
The new cars can also show key information beneath the entire windshield, so you don't have to look down. And unlike some car companies, BMW promises not to eliminate physical knobs for radio and climate. So it sounds like you're saying the answer is not voice. The answer is not touchscreens. The answer is not physical buttons. It sounds like your approach is to divide up the driving tasks to each control that's best suited to it.
Yeah, optimizing that setup is, I think, the art of controlling a vehicle.
Meanwhile, Microsoft says that it too is about to crack the complexity conundrum.
We're at the dawn of the next wave of computing, probably the most impactful thing you and I'll ever get to see in our lifetimes.
According to Chief Marketing Officer Yusuf Mehdi, the solution is artificial intelligence.
A lot of that complexity of files and menus and buttons, all that's going to go away because AI is going to enable us to just ask for what we want.
This feature, called Copilot, is a new app for smartphones and computers.
So for example, I can say, hey, turn my PC to dark mode. This is just like that, I'm in dark mode.
So I could put this into focus mode, do not disturb, without knowing where it is in the settings.
100%, just plain English.
Could I say, pull up that email to my mom?
Yes, you can absolutely do that. You'll be able to say, show me all the emails from my mom last week.
Of course, not everyone will be happy. And people don't like change, do they?
No, people do not like change. That's for sure.
So, will voice control and AI help with the complexity problem? We'll soon find out. In the meantime, if you feel intimidated by complexity, design consultant Jacob Nielsen has 2 pieces of parting advice. First, no need to feel like a techno loser.
It's not your fault. It's the designer's fault for making it complicated. Because it doesn't have to be complicated.
And second,
don't be seduced by this promise of a toothbrush that can do 20 things when you only needed to do one thing. Go for simplicity, buy simplicity, and then your life will be happy.
Author and contributor David Sedaris has thoughts about just how we talk to our phones.
I was in a restaurant when the fellow at the next table picked up his phone. "Siri," he commanded, "call Paul Bauer." Oh, right, I thought. That could be done. By other people, I mean. The first thing I do when getting a new phone or iPad is to disconnect Siri. In part because she's so maddeningly obsequious, but mainly because she feels like cheating. A shortcut to what's already a pretty extraordinary shortcut. If I want to know how many vodka tonics it might take to kill someone my older sister's height and weight, the least I can do is type the questions into Google. The way you talk to a person says a lot about you, of course, but so too does the way you talk to a device. I think of all the people I know who will use a GPS, rely on it for everything, then turn on it when they near their destination. Will you shut up already? Then there are those like my friend Patsy. The two of us were driving from Nashville to Knoxville not long ago and decided to stop midway so I could see where she went to college. "Hey Siri," she said in a tone that suggested fun, "can you get me directions to Swanee, Tennessee?" In what seemed to me like no time at all, Siri answered, "I can't find that." "The University of the South," Patsy said, "in Swanee, Tennessee? I can't find that." Patsy lowered her voice and turned to me. "She does this all the time now." I whispered back, "It seems to me like she's not even trying." "Siri," Patsy said, "can you please get me directions to..." She named a town that was close to Swanee, figuring we could make it from there to the college on our own. When Siri came back with the information, Patsy thanked her with what seemed like genuine gratitude. Mixed into it was a hint of pride, the sort you feel when you're patient with a terribly old person or someone who's new on the job and hasn't quite figured out the register. If Siri was a person, you knew that Patsy would give her a big bonus at Christmas, and that Siri would use that money to fly home for the holidays and say, when asked about work by her parents, "My boss, she's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, I really like her."
The lowly grocery cart is on a roll. Jonathan Vigliotti checks it out.
Shopping carts may help haul the food we'll feast on this Thanksgiving, but when their job is done, they rarely get the respect they deserve. But in some American grocery stores, shopping carts aren't just respected,
It's kind of the highlight of our week.
they're beloved. Places like Price Chopper outside Kansas City, where we met Pat and Mike Foster.
There's been a couple times we've come that it's not been available, and it's disappointing.
Here, a new shopping cart is flying off the rack and down the aisle. A digital screen with GPS guides people around the store. Cameras equipped with AI technology rapidly identify and scan products when they're placed in the basket. Coupons are instant, and you can check out and pay right on the handlebar.
You just lift the flap here. It's easy to just look and say the shopping cart is what it is.
Casey Broker with Price Chopper began test driving the smart carts a few months ago.
Analog and digital.
Yeah. You look at the Caper cart, and it's really this benefit that helps your customer know exactly where they are, and also is going to help us from a sales perspective as well.
It almost turns a chore into something that's engaging, fun.
Everybody goes to the grocery store. Everybody's grabbing a shopping cart. It's a very familiar behavior.
Take me through what we're looking at here.
A behavior David McIntosh with Instacart wanted to turn into a game.
It taps into retailers' existing loyalty programs.
He showed us how Caper Cart works at Instacart's San Francisco headquarters.
When I put items into the cart, you see these 4 AI-powered cameras pick it up. So you see how that...
So that just scanned it as you put it in the cart.
It scanned it, it turned green, and you can see a coupon popped up that I can clip.
The cart is even outfitted with a scale.
Just toss them right in, and you can see the scale update.
That's cool.
Instacart is betting big, spending a whopping $350 million to acquire the technology in 2021. Shopping has come a long way in the last century.
This is where it all began for the shopping cart.
This is it.
The world's first cart was invented in 1937 by an Oklahoma City grocer named Sylvan Goldman, who put wheels and a handle on a folding chair.
He noticed that people stopped buying produce, buying their material when their basket was full. So he came up with this idea of putting a basket on some sort of cart or trolley.
Steve Velasquez is a curator at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C.
So the shopping cart is born in the 1930s. Does it catch on quickly?
It does. He hired actors to pretend shop, to fill the carts, to walk around, and then people started using these carts, and that's when it really took off.
Shopping carts have grown over the decades as markets supersized and refrigerators kept food fresher longer.
Is it really necessary to reinvent the wheel?
Absolutely. When you think about the shopping experience in store, it hasn't really changed that much in the last 80, 90, 100 years. But think about how much it's changed online. What's happened is that online has transformed customer expectations.
The good old shopping cart, once overlooked, once again changing the way we buy our food.
These days, even the least talented of us can create artwork to rival Rembrandt. with just a few clicks. Over the coming months, we're looking at artificial intelligence, the good, the bad, and the unknown. To begin, David Pogue explores the art of AI.
DALL-E 2 is artificial intelligence software that can turn anything you type into art. In any style. Portrait of a panda in the style of Renoir. And boom. It gets pretty good reactions.
An avocado giving a high five to an orange in space in the style of Van Gogh. Go!
Oh! That's great. I love that. I love that.
Oh my God, that's incredible. That is awesome, awesome.
Oh, wow. That is frightening and fascinating all at the same time.
People are using DALL-E to make children's books and magazine covers. I've even used it to illustrate Sunday Morning stories. He also suggested taxing people who close their shutters in the morning. DALL-E 2 and its rivals, like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, are available to anyone. They're inexpensive or even free. It's easy to see how this technology will change the game in graphic design, interior design, architecture, fashion, and movie making.
The goal of the company is to develop artificial general intelligence. And by that, we mean an AI that can do all of the things a human can, and to deploy it in a way that's safe and maximizes the positive benefits to society.
Aditya Ramesh is DALL-E's creator. He works at OpenAI, a company founded in 2015 by Elon Musk and others. The name DALL-E is a mashup of DALL-E, the artist, and WALL-E, the Pixar robot. To train DALL-E, the company fed it 600 million labeled pictures from the internet.
Through deep learning, it not only understands individual objects, like koala bears and motorcycles, but learns from relationships between objects.
It's not merely cutting and pasting together. Its understanding of images is more conceptual and abstract, sort of like how a human would use inspiration from all of the images that he or she may have seen in their lifetime.
I know what you're thinking. This is going to put a lot of artists out of work.
Why would someone hire someone when they could just get something that's good enough? And this is my studio area.
Concept artist Carla Ortiz has designed characters, creatures, and costumes for many Marvel movies.
This is the work that I've done for Doctor Strange, the first movie.
Oh, that is so cool! So you painted that, and that's what billions of people have seen on the screen.
Yeah.
But her biggest concern isn't unemployment. It's that professional artists' work has wound up in OpenAI's database. That's how DALL-E knows how to imitate the style of Norman Rockwell, or Picasso, or Ansel Adams, or living, working artists.
It's an invasion of privacy. It's an invasion of our ability to consent to be into these, data sets. Nobody asked us. The way to fix this is to do so by building data sets that are completely full of public domain works. And then any further kind of expansion from that done so by licensing agreement.
They would say, hey, Carla, we love your style. We would love that to be an option in our algorithms. Here's some money.
Something like that.
The AI companies say they're listening. For example, Stability AI recently announced that it will let artists opt out of future versions of its database. But OpenAI also worried about other downsides, like people churning out images containing porn, violence, or misinformation.
When we trained the model, we filtered out images of weapons, blood, gore.
So I could put in the president killing kittens.
Exactly, and the system will give you an error. It won't let you do that.
DALL-E also tries to compensate for the racial and gender stereotypes in the internet's universe of pictures.
So even though 90% of the doctor pictures on the web are white men, you'll try to even things out?
Exactly.
But not all AI companies have built in that kind of safeguards.
There deserves to be lots of different views and lots of different perspectives on this. And as a society, we have to come together and figure out what the best way to use this amazing technology is.
So they took Avengers and they added the Spider-Verse model.
Imad Mostak is the CEO of Stability AI. Its program, Stable Diffusion, is open source, free to anyone, without restrictions or guardrails. That approach has rung a lot of alarm bells.
We think putting this out into the open so people can see the power of the technology and then figure out together how we can mitigate the harms is superior to it being in the province of unelected companies.
Some Stable Diffusion fans do produce harmful and shocking images, but they rarely see the light of day, Mostak says, because Twitter and Facebook screen them out.
And if you put it onto social media or you put it out there, it's treated just like any other bad content.
The state of the art in AI art is getting there. These early apps still sometimes have trouble with text and faces and generating the usual number of fingers. But they're improving fast. And meanwhile, AI apps that generate audio and video are already in testing. For artist Carla Ortiz, these are distressing developments. She believes that there's value in the creative process itself.
It's therapeutic, it's inspiring, it's communicating between one human and another. AI tools can't do that just yet.
But Stability AI CEO Imad Mostak is all in on the AI arts.
I think it's one of the biggest leaps forwards we've had in technology since maybe the internet. It will create brand new industries and it will make media even more exciting and entertaining. And I think that creates loads of new jobs. It's coming inevitably. And I think it's just going to change just about everything.
Here's Roxana Saberi with a story about taste put to the test.
The taste test is mighty important too.
Over the decades, taste testing hasn't changed much. That's because Sebastian Michaelis says it works.
11-11.
For this master taster,
Course.
grading tea involves math
12-13 hard.
and multiple senses.
Yeah, I think a bit soft, maybe a bit stewy. What is the zing? What is the colour? What is the sparkle? What is the body? For each of those parameters, we will grade teas between 1 and 40.
For a novice, zing means how much flavor hits your mouth.
So for me, the zing feels like a 5 or 6. And for you?
This is more like a 19.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm way off.
But it's okay.
It took Michaelis years, comparing hundreds of brews a day, to detect the subtle differences.
39.
His taste buds are now so discerning,
30,
British tea maker Tetley
38.
has insured them for nearly $1.5 million.
The most important thing for us is that the consumer, the person who's making their cup of tea, isn't getting a weird experience. We have to make sure it's always consistent.
And how consistent is it?
Very consistent. We've been doing this for, over 100 years.
For each palate, there is a flavor that is just right.
Food firms have long relied on seasoned palates
This personal testing of aroma
and focus groups to predict if we'd like a new product.
that is as scientifically objective as the scientists can devise.
But this serious science is far from perfect.
I'm not really tasting the bacon at all. Are you kidding me?
After all, we're only human.
Okay.
That's why tech companies are now trying to teach machines to taste more objectively and precisely than people. At IBM's Swiss lab, researcher Patrick Ruche invented this electronic tongue.
So now it's obtaining measurements.
In under 2 minutes, Hypertaste digitizes a drink's chemical information, then compares it to other liquids using artificial intelligence.
It's 53% likely that this wine is from France.
We can train the system to tell a strong coffee apart from a mild coffee, tell a decaf apart from an espresso.
The scientists say one day it could tell us much more.
Is my drink safe? Is the drink corresponding to the label that's on the bottle? It's about automation, it's about scale, and it's about speed.
But mimicking our sense of taste isn't easy. Our tongues have thousands of taste buds. And taste also involves the nose, which uses hundreds of smell receptors that scientists say can distinguish at least 1 trillion odors. In Silicon Valley, tech startup Aromic says it's cloned the genes behind almost all of those receptors to measure how they respond to flavors and aromas.
So you're trying to create a digital representation of taste and smell.
Exactly. Right.
Josh Silverman is the CEO.
We can give that information back to the companies to say, here's how you can change your recipe to better suit the consumers that you're going after. Our goal is not to put any of the current flavorists or perfumists out of business, but now they have tools to be able to do things they were never able to do before.
Thin, soft, dull.
Back at Tetley, Michaela says technology can't beat humans' ability to taste and create. At least, not yet.
Do you think that a computer one day could be more objective than you, more accurate?
Do I think it will ever be possible? Hopefully not in my lifetime.
After your lifetime?
Never say never.
Many of us are making summer travel plans. But if you're not quite ready to take the plunge, how about a trip around the world without setting foot out the door? Mo Rocca is our guide.
Adrian Charlie loves to travel.
So I've been to Kenya. I've also been to Morocco and camped out in the desert. I've been to Cuba, the United Arab Emirates, Madagascar. I can't believe I forgot that.
Are you sure your full name isn't Adrian Rand McNally?
And for her 50th birthday, she was pulling out all the stops.
So I had planned first-class tickets to Paris. I was going to stay at one of the hotels along the Champs-Élysées.
Then COVID happened. But where there's a will and Wi-Fi, there's a way.
And up in the distance on your right, we get our first glimpse of the Eiffel Tower.
The Oculus entered my life.
She's talking about this, a virtual reality headset. Via virtual reality, VR for short, Adrian has spent the past year globe-trotting. Global pandemic be damned.
This is one of the spaces that I absolutely want to visit. It is the Chateau de Monte Cristo.
And she's not alone. While the headset makers don't release sales figures, some Facebook VR groups report that their membership has tripled in the last year. There are an exploding number of apps and experiences to choose from.
I'm going under.
Immersive is how this technology is often described, and I can attest.
Oh, is that a giant seal?
As I went kayaking in Antarctica, courtesy of a National Geographic app.
Wow.
We have a number of experiences that we've put together. One of them is our Okavango experience.
Whitney Johnson is Vice President of Visuals and Immersive Experiences for National Geographic.
We stopped to have lunch at an elephant crossing, not knowing that the migration was about to arrive.
For Nat Geo, authenticity is key, as experienced in this trip through the African Delta.
I'm not too inclined to want to come face to face with a wild animal in Africa, but through this experience you can do that.
As you can see, we're in New York.
Now, if you really want to get into VR, you can try this.
We've got a bar set up here so people can grab a drink. There's a hot tub over there people can hang out in.
Jeremy Nickel believes very much in the connective power of VR. I met up with him, sort of, on this Brooklyn rooftop. Kind of.
For the price of a couple $100, you can get yourself some goggles, get in here, build worlds, start creating events, and start making VR something you want it to be.
If you haven't figured it out, we're meeting in VR as avatars. I'm the one wearing the cap.
You can bring people together from around the world to have a social, COVID-safe experience here in VR.
In reality, Jeremy's in Boulder, Colorado. I'm in Manhattan. But here we are having an experience together and not on Zoom.
This does, in fact, feel more personal, more intimate than a Zoom session. Yeah, I just wish you had actual arms connecting your hands to the rest of your body.
But I hear you. We'll get there.
Nickel, a Unitarian Universalist minister, has studied Buddhism in India and built this virtual reality temple in the Himalayas for his congregation to meditate. I probably should have visited here first to center myself.
Boy.
As impressive as VR technology is, I found myself feeling a little seasick the first couple of times I tried it. And here's another caveat.
I know so many friends who are buying VR headsets for their kids, and it's not technically a kid device at all.
Scott Stein is editor-at-large at CNET. Why isn't it?
I think it's not quite entirely clear what the optical and even, psychological effects probably of using this stuff could be. I don't let my kids use it very much at all.
But for big kids like Adrian Charlie, it's a virtual wonderland.
As soon as you log off from here, you're going to be in Tanzania or in Uruguay.
Exactly. I haven't had my immersive trip for the day.
You don't need a passport.
No passport required.
Smartphones and other gadgets deliver a wealth of information. But are they also causing a brain drain? Our cover story is reported by Sunday Morning senior contributor Ted Koppel.
50, 60 years ago, television was the threat. It would, we feared, rot our children's minds, our minds, diminishing our attention span, addicting millions to mindless drivel.
Huh? What?
And I think there are those who would say, and they were right. So what's different about today and the internet?
I think every technology that changes the way people live inspires exaggerated hopes and fears.
Technology critic Nicholas Carr has spent most of the past decade worrying and warning about the dangers of social media and the internet, posing the famous question, is Google making us stupid?
We've never had a technology like a smartphone, where it's with us all the time. So I think this is something new in human history. And I think we're starting to see the science, behavioral science, sociological science, that is pointing to how deeply this technology is affecting us because we're using it so intensely.
That's the focus of Byron Reeves' research. He's a professor, what they call a media psychologist, at Stanford University. Professor Reeves developed a way to accurately track our digital lives. How do those 2 to 3 hours a day break down?
To view that 3 hours of content, on average, I am turning that phone on and off 300 times a day. And that's just the average. There are a lot of people that are turning it on and off 5, 6, 7, 800 times a day. So it's going on, going off for an average of 10 seconds.
You're making my brain hurt. What are you talking about?
Take a news story in a Sunday morning television program.
What a brilliant idea.
I don't know, how long does one last? 2 minutes, 10 minutes?
Oh, no, this one will probably last 9, 10 minutes.
Okay, so it lasts 10 minutes. I'll just talk about Stanford students for a second. If you put software on laptop computers and smartphones to measure how long they spent with any given segment of life that they attended to, how long they wrote their paper, how long they watched the news story, it's about 10 to 20 seconds.
But wait a second, I've got a 9-minute piece
Yes.
here. I want them to watch the whole damn thing.
Not going to do it, most likely. It's going to be atomized, and fragmented.
That sounds, Byron, like a formula for confusion.
It could be, but oftentimes we find it's done with a progression of screens that at least kind of makes sense to me. Because you might have said something that's really important to me in minute 2, and I want to get right to that.
What becomes important to us is the next new thing that comes along in a matter of seconds. That's what grabs our attention. And we begin to, not only do we begin to ignore the need to think deeply and quietly and contemplatively about things, but we begin to see that as a waste of time because it stops you from grabbing the next new bit of information.
Facebook was the first among the social media companies to turn those short and shallow attention bites into a hugely profitable business model. They realized that advertisers could just be given what amounts to a one-click roadmap to our brains, showing them, as we flitted from one subject to another, what we liked and didn't like. Meet Justin Rosenstein. Is it fair to describe you as the creator of the like button?
Co-inventor, yeah.
Co-inventor. Tell me what you were thinking of when you first co-invented.
The idea was, could we make it one click really easy for people to be able to share little bits of positivity and affirmation in the world?
And when did you first come to realize that there were, I don't know if you want to describe them as problems, complications?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how it's played out as this kind of double-edged sword. I think it's very dangerous right now to have a business model in which the way that these companies make money is by selling people's attention to advertisers. So regardless of whether they have good or bad intentions, the financial incentives just lean you more and more toward trying to get people to stare at their phones. And as a result, we see that influencing the level of depth that we're able to think at. We see that influencing our politics.
A BuzzFeed analysis of top election stories on Facebook during the final 3 months of the 2016 presidential campaign confirms Rosenstein's fears. Fake election news stories from phony sites significantly outperformed stories from major news outlets like the New York Times, CBS News, and the Huffington Post. The notion that major news outlets see themselves as professional gatekeepers carries less and less weight.
The gatekeepers, the editorial gatekeepers, the journalistic gatekeepers have been overthrown. And I think there was a general sense that that was liberating in the early days of the web and the internet. We can do this ourselves. It will democratize media. And we now know that those enemies, the people we thought were our enemies, the gatekeepers, actually played a very valuable role.
I wish I could tell you that we're going to be able to stop all interference, but that just wouldn't be realistic.
While Facebook and Twitter are undertaking efforts to limit the spread of misinformation online, the fact remains that all these internet companies see themselves as distribution vehicles without any clear editorial responsibility. And in 1996, Congress actually passed legislation to that effect, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act.
They were simply a platform which information flowed on, so there was no responsibility to curate, police, or in any way review the information that appeared on your platform.
Senator Mark Warner is one of the tech industry's best informed and sternest critics.
Candidly, your companies know more about Americans in many ways than the United States government does.
What would happen if they began exercising real discipline over what goes out? And we're talking what? Billions of items a day.
Billions of items a day. And these companies would fight against that regulation tooth and nail.
The internet, Senator Warner reminds us, has been weaponized. Interference in our elections, threats to our infrastructure, undermining confidence in our institutions.
My fear is that we may be investing in the best 20th century planes, tanks, and guns when much of the conflict in the 21st century will be in the realm of misinformation, disinformation, and cyber warfare. And I'm not sure we're ready.
I think ultimately that's the question, is whether as a public we have the kind of sense of our democratic future to make hard choices about what we pay attention to, how we think about things, or whether we let the devices in the social media determine that for us.
You don't seriously think that we have that kind of discipline, do you?
I don't see any evidence of it.
Justin Rosenstein left Facebook some years ago. Today, he's the co-founder of Asana, a software company that enhances workplace productivity.
There's a lot of concerns that I have about that technology will continue to erode our attention span, make it harder for us to focus on important social issues, make it harder for us to think clearly, which is critical to having a functioning democracy. At the same time, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to reimagine these tools and redesign them in order to be a huge boon to civilization. The opportunity there is for us to become the most informed, most compassionate populace of all times, and to be the most functioning democracy of all times. But it's a real fork in the road. I worry that if we continue with business as usual, we run the risk of kind of walking off the cliff of civilization while staring at our phones.
Advances like smartphones and streaming have had a profound impact on entertainment in recent years, especially when it comes to the movies we watch and how we watch them. But has it all been for the better? We asked Ben Mankiewicz to take a closer look.
Hollywood has been reinventing itself for more than 100 years. Change is part of the culture.
You're Norma Desmond. Used to be in silent pictures, used to be big.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
But a pocket-sized Sunset Boulevard?
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
That's not a close-up.
Tell everybody where we are.
Well, we're at the Egyptian Theater.
Ted Sarandos is the co-CEO of Netflix, the world's largest streaming service.
This is the home of the very first Hollywood premiere. Built in 1922. Douglas Fairbanks premiered Robin Hood here. It was a big, spectacular night in Hollywood.
Today, Netflix owns the Egyptian Theater. The cost to renovate, $70 million.
Why'd you do that? Seeing a movie, I mean, it has so many different aspects in people's lives. It inspires people. I can think back to my first time being in a movie theater watching Jaws at 11 years old, and I remember like it was yesterday. Popcorn went this way, and the soda went this way, and the audience screamed, and that's a very unique and different experience.
And an increasingly distant one. Screens are smaller, and ticket prices higher. It all leads to a common refrain. They don't make them like they used to.
How do you respond to that when you hear it?
It's probably like everything else. The thing we grew up on is what we want. And it's oftentimes the art forms move on and move in advance in ways that we kind of miss the old version of it. But they do make movies like they used to. And I think they're better than ever.
That, of course, is debatable. What's not in doubt is that the big movies are far more predictable than ever. In 2024, the top 15 films at the box office were all franchises, sequels, or reboots.
The business has become very stratified. Either movies are gigantic spectaculars built to make billions of dollars, or they're very small independent film, and there's not much in the middle anymore.
Movies still do really well, and big movies are still really big, right? But what's missing at the moment, I believe, is a range and a breadth of originality.
Tom Rothman, like Ted Sarandos, is among the most powerful people in this business. Rothman runs Sony's Motion Picture Group. His films do air on Netflix, but only after they play in theaters.
You can have quality or you can have quantity. It is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to have both quality and quantity together. What does streaming have? It has quantity. Okay, so that's a very broad, wide net. And if it's not this, it's not this, and I'll watch it for 10 minutes while I'm, feeding the cat. It's a very low bar.
How would you characterize the change in this business?
I hate to be cliche, but how much time do you have?
Nancy Meyers has made films that have earned more than $1.5 billion.
Bet you're glad you knocked on this door.
She's the writer and director of hit romantic comedies like The Holiday.
Ah! You're dating my daughter?
Something's Gotta Give, and it's complicated.
Not a great time to be feeling groovy.
Myers believes the shift to, let's call it the superhero formula, has killed off the types of movies many of us have loved for generations.
There is an enormous difference. I felt in the 90s a freedom to have ideas that people would want to make. I wasn't worried that they wouldn't be open to the kind of movies that I make.
Creativity and originality you saw as an asset.
Yes, I did. Character wit, comedy, heart, big screen. I had no crystal ball. I couldn't see into the future of how movies were going to change.
The change, says Myers, means films like Chinatown, The Shawshank Redemption, even Dirty Dancing might not get made today.
Movies, it's always been a business to make money, always. But there was also they were less afraid, I think. They were less afraid. They took more chances.
I would love for the movies to be a little bit less like they used to.
Michael Schulman writes about movies and culture for The New Yorker. He's the author of the book, Oscar Wars.
Every 2 seconds, there is a new Superman, Beetlejuice, Lion King, Alien, Mission Impossible, Bridget Jones, Indiana Jones. The goal is to not come up with the next great idea, but to excite, the shareholders about a sure bet for the next quarter.
Schulman says the movies we grew up on are still out there, produced by the independent studios behind Honora, The Brutalist.
This isn't the fight!
And other Best Picture nominees.
I often hear people say when the list comes out for the Academy Awards, well, I haven't heard of half these movies. If you go to the movie theater and they have 10 screens showing Captain America, Brave New World, and no Brutalist, then there's your problem.
Even now, the average American goes to the movie theaters twice a year. The average Netflix member watches 7 movies a month. So I feel like that's got to be good for the business. And it's got to be good for the art of storytelling to have a platform and an audience, of 700 million people who still watch movies. When they could watch TikTok videos, they could watch YouTube, clips, they could be listening to podcasts, but they still watch movies.
What Ted Sarandos knows, and what many of us may be trying to avoid admitting, is this. If they don't make movies like they used to, it might be because we don't watch them like we used to.
There's all this opportunity, I think, to get the history of this art form, the history of storytelling, the history of humans on the screen. If the screen is, gigantic here, or good sized at home, or even small on your phone. I don't think it's sacrilege for someone to watch a great movie on their phone. I'd much rather them do that than not watch movies at all.
Tom Rothman and Nancy Myers concede there's value in streaming movies at home, but what they want, and what they believe the audience wants, is something cinematic.
A movie experience is not on your phone. A movie experience, and is a collective, big screen experience. You're there, you're in the dark.
It used to be called a dream factory, Hollywood, right? And somebody's dream is up on the screen. Somebody's version of a world that you get pulled into and you get sucked into. And the lights come up at the end, and you've been somewhere, and you've had an experience when we're in a movie theater. That's what a movie is.
There are movies being made that meet the standard of bold originality, but there aren't many.
Nope.
And it feels, and maybe it always felt this at all moments where there was a sea change in Hollywood, but it feels like the hill is too steep to climb.
I love that question. The hill is steep, and the climb is hard. But it is not too steep, and it's not too hard if you're tough and bold enough, right? And if it were easy, anybody could do it. And it's not easy. And you have to be willing to risk, and you have to be willing to fail. Tighten up your boots and climb.